Compared to much of the world, America's national electoral systems are primitive. In reference to the popular vote, throughout the history of the U.S., the Electoral College has an 8% rate of failure. Most Americans today agree that we should abolish the Electoral College, and the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, a compact that states may join to pledge their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote when it becomes active, shows the shift away from the Electoral College at a legislative level. The compact currently holds 209 electoral votes, and it will become active once it reaches the 270 threshold, effectively giving the election to the winner of the popular vote. According to estimated populations of states in 2024, which are based on 2020 U.S. Census data, in a presidential race with only two candidates where every single eligible voter votes, a candidate can theoretically win the election with under 21.6% of the popular vote. This theoretical figure can be lowered further to reflect realistic voter turnout rates. This is obviously so unlikely that it will never happen, but our current system does allow this to be mathematically possible. At the heart of any electoral system are its capacities to ensure proportional representation and governability. If results are too proportional to voters' preferences, then elected officials will not agree with one another enough to get anything done. We use the first-past-the-post system, sometimes as a majority system, sometimes as a plurality system, everywhere from independent states and presidential elections, with the exceptions of Nebraska and Maine, to local gerrymandered House district elections. This may work for a foot race, but first-past-the-post is mediocre in ensuring governability and just plain awful at ensuring proportional representation. This is largely because votes for any candidate other than the winner are thrown away and are not further taken into account when considering the overall makeup of, say, the House of Representatives. A common argument for the keeping of the Electoral College is that the Electoral College forces candidates to garner the support of the whole country and not just of the most populated areas like big cities. This argument is rather absurd for two reasons. One is that the more populated areas have more people. Why shouldn't their opinions be reflected in legislative bodies more so than those of a group of fewer people? Two, the Electoral College incentivizes candidates to focus most of their attention on swing states that under the Electoral College decide the election. Additionally, the combined populations of the 10 most populated cities in America in 2020 was only 7.9% of the total population, and that number has only gone down. Ranked choice voting systems, commonly referred to as RCV systems, are systems where voters rank any number of candidates on their ballot instead of just picking one. A variant of RCV called instant runoff voting, IRV, has had a notable recent rise in popularity since the 2000s, with its presence in several state and local elections. A common argument against IRV and other alternative systems is that they make voting more complicated for voters. After all, there have been surveys that show that people generally prefer single-choice voting to RCV methods. Poll statistics, however, show that most people, after voting in an IRV election, feel that IRV is simple and easy to understand and that they prefer it to single-choice voting, showing that there may be a status quo bias, since the status quo is single-choice first-past-the-post voting. Additionally, so many places like NYC, Cambridge, Seattle, Salt Lake City, Alaska, and Maine has successfully passed the legislation and regulations required to implement these systems. It has been shown that the disproportionate distribution of voter power in the Electoral College and Senate, which is directly tied to the uneven distribution of electoral votes, has historically unfairly favored the Republican Party. So it shouldn't be surprising that the compact I mentioned earlier consists mostly of blue states. A shift to RCV and other proportional electoral methods would benefit the Democrats. The biggest beneficiaries, though, would be third-party candidates, no longer considered to be spoiler candidates. Third-party candidates would have a chance, at least more so than they do now, and voters could express support for third-party candidates without sacrificing any of their support for one of the two main party candidates. This isn't to say that IRV is the best or only alternative. There are so many other potentially better alternatives out there, like Condorcet voting for example, but it is definitely better than first-past-the-post. Of course, these points have been beaten to death already by mathematicians and political scientists alike, so how do we get rid of our current systems? Can we get rid of them? Well, a major obstacle to implementing new systems is the pressure formed by the strong and increasing political polarization in recent years, which may prompt some to reject new systems that do not obviously favor their own group or party. Another major roadblock is that of educating the public. Those pushing new means of voting have the duty to inform the public how it works and why it works. Misinformation can easily poison the public's perception of something new, something scary, that changes that which is so fundamental to our democracy. Perhaps the biggest obstacles, though, are the legal ones. The compact I mentioned earlier will likely face adversity from the Supreme Court based on its constitutionality. With the implementation of new voting systems will come many legal challenges from both individuals and government entities. Voters must also trust both the system's mathematical validity and its practical implementation. Those who count the votes and those who announce the results need to be trusted. If a voter does not trust the system by which their representatives are elected, why vote at all? A large component of modern polarization and large-scale mistrust in institution is media consumption, especially homogeneous media consumption. Research shows that when issues like global warming are framed in a bipartisan manner, people on opposite sides of the aisle are more readily able to recognize the similarities in their beliefs and come to compromises. In order to truly overthrow first-past-the-post and single-choice voting, the government and media need to work for the people, not against them. Of course, the government and media engaging in bad faith practices is at the root of so many social problems in America right now, so fixing this immediately is not actually realistic. So as people who know the merits of alternative voting systems, we should focus on educating others and advocating for new systems at local, state, and national levels.